No. Come on, no. This is disgusting.
Over a decade in the making, Duke Nukem Forever has finally been unleashed on the unsuspecting masses. Does Duke's next-gen foray have the same swagger as his groundbreaking 3D debut, or should it have remained in obscurity forevermore?
Oh, thanks, Duke. That guy was a douche.
The aliens from Duke's past, a menagerie of pig cops, flying octopi, and predator rejects, have returned and are intent on taking Earth swimming. Duke has come out of retirement to save the babes and ultimately relieve himself in the ocular cavities of his foes. The story starts wafer thin, more vehicle for one-liners and self-exaltation, and eventually evaporates with brief catcalls to a spineless president and NPCs that appear to just die. Duke's zingers, ranging from abrasive to sophomoric, hardly qualify as a story, and his lowest jabs go beyond the pale of bad taste, with misogynistic undertones that are shocking, but not remotely funny.
Duke, what's happening to us?
Looks like you're fucked.
Meanwhile, the idea of threading a narrative through the objectives and set pieces has been all but abandoned.
If I promised to kill you last, I lied.
It's common for games to be front-loaded with their best bits so players feel like they're getting their money's worth. Duke follows this trope with a heavily scripted open, immediately starting with some bathroom humor and moving right into the rest of his staples: interactive objects, big guns, and aliens. After a small twist revealing that Duke was actually playing a video game in which he's the star, the campaign begins in earnest, and never reaches the level of the carefully sculpted opening charade.
Now I've got a really bad feeling about this.
What you get is a variety of elements haphazardly glued together. Shooting often takes a back seat as you drive miniature cars, navigate gigantic furniture while shrunken, or search for sex toys to appease strippers.
Body massage.
These stunts keep you moving through the first third of the game at a lightning pace, with no single activity lasting overly long. The middle section of the game recycles more ideas as you move to some new environments, while the last third comprises putrid retreads with unfair difficulty spikes as the game goes for the kitchen sink approach. The progression path is fairly linear, though you're kept on the lookout for ego items, small diversions you can mess around with for a permanent health boost. These little Easter eggs also thin out as the game progresses, with the unpolished levels mixing yesteryear's tropes, like exploding barrels, with today's linear paths. As a result, Duke feels like a modern relic.
You're spent.
The multiplayer offers a small selection of standard modes and a good number of maps. The metagame has you leveling and completing challenges for aesthetic accoutrements, and a mansion you can fill with various trophies, but nothing that affects gameplay. Actually playing feels like a throwback. You're running around and camping weapon spawns for the most part. Freeze and shrink rays add some chaotic fun, as do the trip mines, though the kinetics feel off in general, and the teams are rather small. There isn't much of a draw beyond your nostalgia for quick deaths and quick respawns in the end. Duke's adventure, both on and offline, suffers from glory day hindsight that clumsily bends the knee to the present. It comes off as a series of short levels and erratic change-ups that are trying to mask the overall mediocrity of the design.
Not my babes. Not in my town. You alien motherfuckers are gonna pay for this.
Duke's gun game is simply not good. The campaign's variety doesn't mean squat when the core gameplay is rotten. Of all the modern trappings to cherry-pick from, limiting your arsenal to 2 weapons is the most egregious. It doesn't help that many of the weapons lack imagination, and that the most memorable, like the Shrink Ray, are pilfered from the previous games. Longtime fans looking for new methods of destruction will be disappointed, though the tried-and-true Devastator, which belches missiles fast and frequently, is still a blast to fire. Enemies are more annoying than challenging, with more corridor shootouts than open areas. Flying, teleporting aliens are a test of patience, not dexterity, while the brutish pig cops have a death wish as they deliberately slam into your bullets. Though the bosses only take damage from explosive weapons and stationary turrets, any challenge that would accompany this is undone by the nearly 2-decade-old strategy of circle strafing. Other bosses try to dethrone Duke by means of tiny playfields for the encounter, resulting in cat-and-mouse battles that are a chore and a bore. The non-combat interludes require some light adventuring and puzzle solving, rewarding players for messing around with the interactive ego items. It's one of the better throwbacks, but those experiences peter out as you progress, though simple physics puzzles are peppered in appropriately. First-person platforming is almost never a good idea, and it's true here as well, with Duke doing his Mario impersonation a few times, especially when shrunk down. The driving sections let you mow down aliens, and blissfully reset you if you fall off a cliff without the horrendous load times that come with death. The late-game inclusion of underwater sections is possibly a war crime, and just makes the ending of Duke's adventure that more sour. Duke's graphics are as palatable as the chicken wings at the strip club buffet when viewed under dim lighting. You can't keep the beer goggles on forever. The limping frame rates, blurry textures, and unholy load times will have you believing you're playing a beta. They've nailed Duke's voice as the throaty carnival barker, with John St. John reprising his role. Sure enough, quips repeat, but the frequency is carefully metered. Outside of the jabs at modern games, what you get are knee slappers straight out of the 90s.
Size only matters when you're full grown, baby.
The sound effects and music fail to stand out, but they're far from the worst offenders, with some decent ambient sound design for each of the locales. In many ways, Duke Nukem 3D presaged how shooters would eventually evolve, which goes a long way toward explaining why people are even paying attention right now. Forever has strip-mined this legacy and has little to show for it. It's an embarrassing, abhorrent air resting on its laurels, with plenty of ugly humor, bubblegum pastiche, and very little in the way of ass-kicking prowess.
Oh man, that is... I mean, I don't understand any of it, but I bet if I did, that guy over there would still have his arm. And at least one of his balls.